Hello, everybody. Okay, so first that I am here, I would like to thank the people who gave me this opportunity to be here, stand here, and share some wonderful things with you guys. And my topic today would be a flawed peace. How the end of World War I led to World War II. Firstly, I would like to ask you guys, and especially a lot of Junmis, a question. What comes into your mind when you think of World War II? Is it the Panzers, the Stukas, maybe the fall of France, or many other things? Well, today, I'm going into something differently. I'm going to talk about flaws. You see, flaws in history are interesting because if flaws are not fixed, they will become problems that will be worse and worse, and eventually they will result in disasters. Today, we'll look at the flaws at... Can you please turn? Yes, thank you. So today we'll look at the flaws caused at the end of World War I that will later result in World War II. So firstly, slide please. Thank you. What do you guys see here? Sorry guys, but the image is a bit unclear, but yeah. This picture is supposed to show ruins. A ruin after World War I. So at 1918, after a daunting and long process of the Great War, which lasted 5 years, many European nations were pretty much just the same as what they look on this picture. And both politically and economically were some nations messed up. Germany, as a once powerful empire, lost 40% of its industrial output in the process, and nations such as Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist. Yes. Can you turn back a slide? Yes, so the question now appears into most people's mind. Who should repair all this? Who should fix all that damage to repay and rebuild all the stuff? Well, as we all know, next slide please. At the end of World War I, there is such thing known as the Treaty of Versailles, which ended the war officially and made peace. And now, the fate of the defeated, like the Germans and the original Austrians, are now decided by the victors. The victors, such as France and English. And here on this picture, we can see some of the leading figures of the Treaty of Versailles. 4 people, each representing a different faction in the treaty. For instance, Great Britain, France, and the United States. They will decide the fate of the nations that were defeated. Next slide, please. So, when it comes to such question, the angry French got an idea. They were badly beaten during the war and wanted only vengeance for the Germans. So, of course, the French stated, the German people must pay for all the damage to civilians on land or sea or from the air. Next slide, please. This decision made by French would eventually result in a total amount of $55 billion back then as reparation money given from Germany to the Allies. Germany will be forced and was forced to accept the responsibility for World War I. As such, she had to shoulder the burden of compensating the Allies and all the damage done to both civilians and property. And remember, we were talking about flaws lead to problems, and now let's take a look at the first flaw in the Treaty of Versailles. Next slide, please. Which is known as the War Guild Clause. So the War Guild Clause would make Germany the sole state responsible for all the damages done in World War I. All the damage done, by the way, to emphasize. And that would mean a total payment of 20 billion gold marks. So, my dear audiences, I would like to ask you guys a question. Was it possible for Germany, a state that has just been through 4 years of extensive conflicts, to repay all the money that was needed to repair Europe? So, you guys got an answer? No. Exactly. No way. So, yeah. So as a battered nation, there will be no way that Germany could possibly afford such money in a short time. So, which leads us to the second flaw. In the 1920s, the badly battered German economy by the Treaty of Versailles and of course by 4 years of warfare led to problems. And in order to compensate the problem, the German government, the Weimar Republic, found a terrible solution to the problem, is that they will print lots of money in order to pay back the Treaty of Versailles. This seemed like a wise option back then, but from hindsight, from us today, we know that it is a terrible choice because too many cash bills floating among people would mean that the cash was worth nothing. And the situation, the hyperinflation, got so ridiculous. Now my audiences, please look at this graph. From 1922 to 1923, the situation of the inflation escalated because money was printed. In 1922, originally, 1 gold mark would be equivalent to about 100 or maybe 1,000 Deutschmarks, which by the way is the German currency, and skyrocketed in 1923 and reached the figure of 1 trillion paper marks equals to 1 gold mark. So what does this mean for commoners? Well, if you want to know the feeling of having to need 1 trillion currency or money to pay for a breakfast, you got it. And internationally, the situation weren't any better. 1 trillion marks in 1923 would be equivalent to 1 USD. Next slide, please. And then, of course, things only got worse for the Germans just when they thought that things couldn't get any worse. In 1929, the Great Depression struck Germany. It struck Germany so badly that right now the Deutschmarks are totally worthless. As we can see here, people are using Deutschmarks as fuel for fire and sometimes even building blocks. And according to accessible historical documents, kids were even using Deutschmarks as materials to make paper kites. So the stock market crash in 1929 US turned out to be horrible for the German economy. So as we can see here on this picture, people are protesting for a better economy. Well, that is no surprise because at the stage of the Great Depression, Germany has pretty much been one of the most unemployed states in the world at the figure of about 30% of people unemployed. So right now, for the people of Germany, there is a simple and direct question, or a life and death complication. So the people of Germany like, should we listen to Adolf Hitler, that madman with a little mustache? Or should we just die on the street in hunger and cold? Next slide, please. Here is the German people who suffered during the Great Depression in a soup kitchen, having nothing, no money, no job, no food. So now, here we have 2 actual historical accounts about the actual story of the inflation and the Great Depression. So the Berlin publisher, the first case, the Berlin publisher Leopold Olstein wrote that an American visitor tipped their cook or their soup kitchen $1. The family convened and it was, decided that a trust fund should be set up in a Berlin bank with the cook as the beneficiary or the supporter of the whole cause, the bank as the administrator, and invested the $1. So the other story, the price will be changed by 6 p.m., is from the account of a professor. This professor, working in a university, saw his payment go from 10,000 marks a month to the skyrocketing figure of 10 million marks twice per day in less than 2 years. And when he was going out of his office and getting to another professor and asked if they're going for a streetcar, the other professor answered, "Let's hurry, because the price will change at 6 p.m. We might not be able to afford it." These are true illustrations of how bad and terrible the Great Depression and the inflation has become. Next, please. Okay, So imagine if you have to pay 4.5 million for one loaf of bread in the Great Depression. Think of all these people standing outside the bakery, the soup kitchen. What would they think? What would they think of the Weimar Republic? How much hatred and pain do they have in their hearts? And of course, as we have mentioned about the flaws, now it is time for us to take a look at the problems caused. So one of the most direct results of the Great Depression, the inflation, and the Treaty of Versailles was the fact that the Nazi Party came into power. From originally an outcast party in the 1920s, the German Nazi Party began to win over 18.3% of votes in September 1930 election. Slowly, the Nazis were beginning to seem from a bunch of crazy, insane, deluded people into the people that would make Germany respected and great again. And of course, in order to illustrate the Nazi Party better, we have to take a look at their absolute leading figure, Adolf Hitler. So, as a person, Adolf Hitler has been through the humiliations of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles, and of course, been through the hard experiences under the rule of the Weimar Republic during the hyperinflation, which, of course, is kind of a lot of hatred if it all goes into one person. So Adolf Hitler, determined, ran for president against Paul von Hindenburg in March 1932, but lost in the popular election. But remember, he lost the popular election by merely a bit. And of course, Hindenburg soon died in 1934. And Hitler was appointed official president of the state. From that point on, Hitler merged the offices of party leader, head of state, and chief of government into one, all under himself, with the famous title of the Führer. Next, please. So, Germany wanted anything to make Germany great again. We have two actual historical accounts here. First is Adolf Hitler parading his fanatic youth leagues. The other is how the people of Germany line up behind the great Führer, or at least that's what they thought. And we can see the swastikas and feel the fanatic and nationalistic emotions of the German people. Their determination to make Germany great again, to conquer Europe, to end their humiliation of the past once and for all. So we have seen the flaw of the treaty and how it resulted into one of the most brutal and most bloody conflicts in world history. But have you ever asked yourself, what could have been done instead? Could this flaw have been corrected in time to prevent the rise of Nazism, the invasion of the world by Axis powers? We should always try to connect a flaw or else it will lead to disaster. So maybe we should just take a look and see if there is an actual better way. So let's take a look at the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan is a post-World War II American plan in order to fund the European nations destructed by the fires of World War II. So here we have a photo of the famous General George Marshall. So the Marshall Plan spent over 14 billion and loans, perhaps, coming from all allied nations to help the nations destroyed by war to rebuild. Despite the political intentions and the fact that it wants to pretty much create alliance throughout Europe, it did help the German economy repair yet again a lot. German refugees were able to live safe in their homes and not worry from hunger and other issues. Next, please. And of course, we see the creation of the United Nations at that era. So during World War II, United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt, British PM Winston Churchill, and of course the Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin met several times between 1941 and 1945 in order to develop an international peacekeeping organization with the goal of preventing future wars on the scale of World War II. This had far-reaching impact even to our lives today. As we now know, the UN cannot totally keep the world peace, but at least it is able to able to prevent some conflicts around the world. Next, please. So, the creation of the United Nations and the international laws did offer us some helpful insights into what we should do to keep world peace. When nations are suffering from the flames of war, we should not make them suffer. We should not use our nationalistic view to view them. We should not make one country take all the responsibility and left them with all the pain and humiliation. Instead, we need to focus on helping them, to aid them, and to help and not harm, to make those nations healthy and make them recover from the damage caused by war and human conflict. I believe that this is the lesson that history has taught us in this case. Okay, so finally, I can't believe I'm actually reaching the end of this presentation. So firstly, I would like to thank Ray for providing this excellent, this perfect and amazing opportunity for me, a beginner in speech, to speak up here. Also, I would like to thank Kevin for providing me with this chance. But at last, I would like to thank all my great companions in G11. You guys are my greatest help, and I have never made this PPT without your help. So thank you very much, guys.